Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Midnight Knowledge. Tonight, we're going to learn about how ancient cultures measured time. So, as you settle in, please take a moment to let us know where you're listening from, and feel free to subscribe. Now, as we begin, take a moment for some deep breaths, letting your mind and body relax for a good night of sleep. As we start off this evening, I have a question for you. How many of you checked your phone for the time in the last 5 minutes? And how many of you have complained about being 5 minutes late to something? Well, today, we're going to explore a time when being 5 minutes late was literally impossible. Not because people were always punctual, but because the concept of a minute didn't exist yet. Welcome to our exploration of how ancient cultures measured time, a story that's part science, part religion, part politics, and entirely fascinating. Time is perhaps humanity's greatest obsession. We're born, we age, we die, all measured in units of time. We plan our days, our seasons, our lives around temporal measurements. But here's what's remarkable. Every single culture that has ever existed has found ways to measure and organize time, despite having no smartphones, no atomic clocks, and certainly no meetings that could have been an email. Ancient peoples faced the same fundamental challenge we do today. How do you organize collective human activity? How do you know when to plant crops, when to hold religious ceremonies, when to meet for trade, or when to prepare for war? The solutions they developed were ingenious, often beautiful, and sometimes hilariously complicated. Today, we'll journey through several major ancient civilizations to understand their approaches to timekeeping, from the Sumerians who gave us the 60-minute hour. Thanks for nothing, guys, to the Maya, whose calendar was so accurate it puts our modern leap year system to shame. Let's start with ancient Egypt, because if you're going to talk about timekeeping, you might as well begin with the civilization that essentially invented the 365-day year. The Egyptians were obsessed with time, and for good reason. Their entire civilization depended on the predictable flooding of the Nile River, the Nilometer and the sacred flood. Imagine your entire agricultural system depending on one river's annual tantrum. The ancient Egyptians developed what we might call the world's first natural alarm clock, the heliacal rising of Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky. When Sirius appeared just before dawn after a 70-day absence, it meant the Nile flood was coming. This event became the foundation of their calendar. The Egyptians divided their year into 3 seasons of 4 months each. Akhet, or inundation, when the Nile flooded. Perit, or growing, when crops were planted and grew. Shemu, or harvest, when crops were gathered. Each month had 30 days, giving them 360 days, plus 5 extra days they called epagomenal days, basically their version of oops, math is hard days. These 5 extra days were considered unlucky, which explains why ancient Egyptians probably invented the concept of Bad Monday. Egyptian hours, when day length actually mattered. The Egyptians divided both day and night into 12 hours each. But here's where it gets interesting. Their hours weren't fixed lengths like ours. A summer day hour was longer than a winter day hour because there's more daylight in summer. Imagine if your workday expanded and contracted with the seasons. Sorry, boss, I know I'm late, but winter hours are shorter, so technically I'm early for summertime. They used several ingenious devices for timekeeping. Shadow clocks. The earliest sundials date back to around 1500 BCE. The Egyptians placed obelisks, those towering stone monuments that every major city now seems to want one of, in public spaces, partly to cast shadows for telling time. These weren't just timepieces, they were also massive advertisements saying, "Look how advanced we are. We can measure time and intimidate our neighbors." Water clocks. For nighttime and cloudy days, Egyptians developed water clocks around 1400 BCE. Water dripped through a small hole in the bottom of a container at a steady rate. Markings on the side indicated the hours. The only problem? Water flows faster when it's under more pressure, so they had to make the containers with sloped sides to maintain steady flow. Ancient Egyptian engineers were basically the first people to realize that "it's complicated" applied to more than just relationship status. The Egyptian calendar's lasting impact. The Egyptian solar calendar became the foundation for our modern calendar. They figured out that a year was approximately 365.25 days long, remarkably accurate for people working without telescopes or computers. Their calendar influenced the Roman calendar, which eventually became our Gregorian calendar. But here's my favorite Egyptian time-related fact. They invented the concept of the weekend. Well, sort of. Every 10th day was a market day when people didn't work in the fields. So they basically invented the 10% break ratio, not quite as generous as our 2 to 5 weekend to weekday ratio, but hey, it was a start. Mesopotamia, where mathematics met time. If Egypt was the master of solar observation, Mesopotamia was the birthplace of mathematical timekeeping. The Sumerians, Babylonians, and Assyrians of this region gave us some of our most fundamental time concepts, and we're still living with their decisions today. The base 60 system. Thank you for nothing, Sumerians. Around 3000 BCE, the Sumerians developed a base 60, or sexagesimal numbering system. Why 60? Well, 60 has many factors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12, 15, 20, 30, 60, making it excellent for division. It's like they designed a number system for people who really hate remainders. This base 60 system is why we have 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 360 degrees in a circle, 6 times 60. So the next time you're waiting for exactly 60 seconds for something to load, you can thank a Sumerian mathematician from 5,000 years ago. They probably never imagined their number system would one day measure how long it takes for cat videos to buffer. Babylonian astronomy and the first horoscopes. The Babylonians were the ancient world's premier astronomers and astrologers, back when those were the same job. They kept detailed records of celestial movements for over 1,000 years, creating the first systematic astronomical observations in human history. Around 700 BCE, they developed the zodiac, dividing the sky into 12 sections of 30 degrees each. There's that base 60 system again. Each section was associated with certain stars and, eventually, with personality traits and predictions about the future. Yes, the Babylonians invented horoscopes, so we can blame them for every Mercury is in retrograde excuse you've ever heard. The Babylonian calendar, lunar meets solar. The Babylonians used a lunar calendar with 12 months of alternating 29 and 30 days, totaling 354 days. But they weren't stupid. They knew the solar year was about 365 days. So every few years, they added an extra month called Adaru II, basically Adaru, the sequel. This intercalation wasn't done systematically at first. The king would just declare, "You know what? This year feels like it needs an extra month." Imagine if our leap years were decided by presidential decree. My fellow Americans, I've decided February needs to be 45 days long this year because I feel like it. Mesopotamian time units. The Mesopotamians gave us several time concepts we still use. The 7-day week. This might have originated from their observation of the 7 wandering stars, the 5 visible planets plus the sun and moon. Each day was associated with one of these celestial bodies, which is why we have Sunday sun, Monday moon, and the other days named after gods associated with planets. The 12-hour day and night. Like the Egyptians, they divided day and night into 12 parts each, but they were among the first to use the 24-hour total day concept systematically. The no-mun. They perfected the sundial's pointer and developed shadow tables that could account for seasonal variations. Basically, they turned shadow watching into a science. Ancient China. Harmony between heaven and earth. Chinese timekeeping was fundamentally different from Western approaches because it was deeply intertwined with philosophy, astronomy, and the concept of harmony between earthly and celestial realms. Time wasn't just a measurement tool, it was a reflection of cosmic order. The Chinese calendar. Multiple systems for maximum confusion. The Chinese developed not one, but several overlapping calendar systems that they used simultaneously. Imagine trying to schedule a meeting when everyone uses different calendar apps that don't sync. The solar calendar, 365.25 days divided into 24 solar terms, each about 15 days, marking agricultural seasons with poetic names like rainwater, grain rains, and white dew. These weren't just meteorological predictions, they were cosmic announcements. Attention citizens, the universe has declared it's time for grain rains. Please adjust your farming accordingly. The lunar calendar, based on moon phases, with months of 29 or 30 days. This is still used today for traditional Chinese holidays, which is why Chinese New Year seems to move around on Western calendars. The sexagenary cycle. This 60-year cycle combined 10 heavenly stems and 12 earthly branches, associated with the zodiac animals. Every year, month, day, and even hour had a unique combination. It's like they created the world's most complex dating system, and I mean dating as in, what day is it? Though it probably made romantic dating pretty complicated too. Chinese inventions in timekeeping, the water clock escapement. Around 725 CE, Chinese engineers developed the escapement mechanism, a device that regulates the release of energy in clockwork. This was over 500 years before European clocks used similar technology. Chinese water clocks were so sophisticated they could ring bells, sound drums, and announce the time audibly. Basically, they invented the snooze alarm centuries before anyone knew they needed it. Incense clocks. The Chinese burned specially designed incense sticks or coils that would burn for specific periods. Different scents would indicate different hours. Imagine if your day smelled like jasmine in the morning, sandalwood at noon, and rose in the evening. They even had incense alarm clocks that would drop metal balls onto plates at predetermined times. Wake up and smell the extremely precise timekeeping device. The cosmic engine. In 1092 CE, Susong built an astronomical clock tower over 30 feet tall that combined a water-powered armillary sphere, a celestial globe, and a mechanical timepiece. It was like the ancient Chinese equivalent of the world's most elaborate cuckoo clock, except instead of a bird, you got precise astronomical calculations. Time philosophy. The mandate of heaven. For the Chinese, accurate timekeeping wasn't just practical, it was a moral obligation. The emperor's legitimacy depended on maintaining harmony between earthly time and celestial time. If the calendar was wrong, it could indicate that the emperor had lost the mandate of heaven, and revolution might be justified. This led to some interesting political situations. Imagine if inaccurate weather forecasts could legally justify overthrowing the government. The meteorologist said it would rain today, but it's sunny. So clearly this administration has lost legitimacy. Chinese astronomers were among the most accurate in the ancient world, partly because their jobs, and possibly their heads, depended on it. The Maya, mathematical perfection in time. If you want to talk about precision in ancient timekeeping, you have to talk about the Maya. These Mesoamerican mathematicians created what might be the most accurate calendar system in human history, more accurate in some ways than our current Gregorian calendar. Mayan mathematics, 0 heroes. First, let's acknowledge that the Maya independently invented the concept of zero around 4th century CE, centuries before it reached Europe from India. Zero seems obvious to us now, but it's actually a profound mathematical concept. The Maya didn't just discover zero, they weaponized it for calendar calculations that would make a modern computer programmer weep with joy. The Mayan calendar systems, because one is never enough. The Maya used multiple interconnected calendar systems simultaneously. The Sol Keen, or sacred calendar, a 260-day cycle combining 20-day names with 13 numbers. Why 260? Possibly because it's close to the human gestation period, about 266 days, or the interval between zenith passages of the sun in Mayan territory. Every day had a unique name-number combination, like 4-ah-how or 13-ik. It's like they invented a 260-day version of Manic Monday. The Hob, solar calendar, a 365-day year with 18 months of 20 days each, plus 5 extra unlucky days called YEB. During YEB, people stayed home, avoided work, and didn't wash their hair. Basically, the Maya invented the concept of mental health days and made them officially part of the calendar round. The combination of Solkeen In and Hob created a 52-year cycle, the least common multiple of 260 and 365. Each day in this 52-year period had a unique combination of sacred and solar calendar names. Imagine having to remember not just your birthday, but your birthday's sacred name, solar name, and their intersection. Mayan party planning must have been incredibly complicated. The long count, thinking really big. But the Maya weren't content with 52-year cycles. They developed the long count, a linear calendar that could measure vast periods of time. 1 Keen equals 1 day. 1 Wainal equals 20 days. 1 Tun equals 360 days, 18 Wainals. 1 Katun equals 7,200 days, 20 Tuns. 1 Baktun equals 144,000 days, 20 Katuns. The current long count cycle began on a date corresponding to August 11th, 3114 BCE in our calendar, over 5,000 years ago. The Maya were thinking about timescales that encompass virtually all of recorded human history. They were planning for the long term in ways that make our 401k retirement planning look pathetically short-sighted. Mayan astronomical accuracy. The Maya calculated the length of a solar year as 365.2420 days. Our current measurement is 365.2422 days. They were off by 0.0002 days. That's an error of about 17 seconds per year. Without telescopes, without computers, without even metal tools for most of their history. They also tracked Venus with incredible precision, predicting its cycles within minutes over periods of centuries. Venus was particularly important because it was associated with warfare. Maya rulers would time battles based on Venus's position. Imagine explaining to your troops, "We're not attacking today because Venus isn't in the right spot. Check back in 3 weeks." The 2012 end of the world misunderstanding. The Maya long count completed a major cycle, 13 Baktuns, on December 21st, 2012, leading to widespread panic about the end of the Maya calendar, predicting the end of the world. This was like saying the world would end when your car's odometer rolled over from 99,999 to 100,000 miles. The Maya calendar didn't end. It just started a new cycle. Maya astronomers would probably be amused or annoyed that their mathematical precision was misinterpreted as apocalyptic prophecy. Ancient Greece and Rome. Philosophy meets practicality. The Greeks and Romans approached time from 2 different angles. The Greeks were more interested in the philosophical nature of time, while the Romans were focused on the practical organization of civic life. Together, they gave us many concepts we still use today. Greek philosophy of time. The Greeks gave us 2 fundamental concepts of time that we still discuss today. Chronos, quantitative time, the measurable mechanical passage of moments. This is clock time, calendar time, the time that just keeps ticking regardless of what's happening. Kairos, qualitative time, the right or opportune moment for something to happen. This is timing in the sense of perfect timing, the moment when conditions are just right. Greek philosophers spent considerable energy debating whether time was real or just a human construct. Aristotle defined time as the measure of change. Basically, time exists because things change, and we measure that change. Without change, there would be no time. This was remarkably sophisticated thinking for people who thought the Earth was the center of the universe. Greek timekeeping devices. Sundials. The Greeks perfected the sundial and were among the first to adjust for latitude. They realized that a sundial designed for Athens wouldn't work properly in Alexandria. This might seem obvious now, but remember, they had to figure this out without GPS coordinates. The Tower of the Winds. Built in Athens around 50 BCE, This octagonal tower contained multiple sundials, a water clock, and a weather vane. It was basically the ancient world's first meteorological station with built-in time services. Modern weather apps have nothing on a beautiful marble tower that tells time, tracks the wind, and looks magnificent doing it. The Antiquity mechanism. Discovered in a shipwreck in 1901, this bronze device from around 100 BCE is often called the world's first analog computer. It could predict the positions of the sun, moon, and planets, as well as eclipses, for decades in advance. The complexity wasn't matched again until mechanical clocks appeared in the 14th century CE. Basically, the Greeks built a device so advanced that when it was discovered, archaeologists initially thought it couldn't possibly be ancient. Roman practical time. The Romans were less interested in philosophical discussions about the nature of time and more concerned with running an empire that stretched across 3 continents. Their approach to time was refreshingly practical. Roman hours. The Romans divided the day into 24 hours like we do, but like earlier civilizations, their hours varied in length with the seasons. A Roman summer hour was about 75 modern minutes, while a winter hour was about 45 minutes. Roman workers probably had complicated feelings about seasonal time changes. Imagine if your 8-hour workday expanded to 10 hours in summer and shrank to 6.4 hours in winter. The Roman calendar crisis. The early Roman calendar was a mess. It started with 10 months March to December, which is why September, October, November, and December are named after 7, 8, 9, and 10 even though they're the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th months now. The year was only 304 days, and they just ignored winter. Imagine if we still did this. What happened in January and February? Oh, we don't count those months. Winter is just a temporal void. Later, they added January and February, but the calendar was still only 355 days. To keep it aligned with the seasons, they periodically inserted an extra month called Mercedonius. The decision of when to add this month was left to Roman priests, who were apparently either terrible at math or easily bribed, because by Julius Caesar's time, the calendar was off by about 3 months. Roman farmers were planting crops in what the calendar said was spring, but what their eyes told them was actually winter. The Julian calendar, Caesar's greatest victory. In 46 BCE, Julius Caesar reformed the Roman calendar with help from Alexandrian astronomer Sosigenes. The Julian calendar had 365 days, with an extra day every 4th year, the first systematic leap year system. To bring the calendar back into alignment, 46 BCE had to be 445 days long. Romans called it the Year of Confusion, which is the most Roman way possible to describe a bureaucratic timekeeping disaster. Caesar's calendar was so successful that it remained in use for over 1,600 years. The Gregorian calendar we use today is just a slight adjustment to Caesar's system, removing 3 leap years every 400 years for greater accuracy. Roman time announcements. Romans didn't have public clocks, so a public official called a praeco would announce the time throughout the day. Imagine if someone's full-time job was to walk around your city shouting, "It's 3 o'clock," every hour. The praeco would announce dawn, prima hora, mid-morning, tertia hora, noon, sexta hora, mid-afternoon, nona hora, sunset, vespera. The most important announcement was noon, which was determined by when the sun crossed the meridian. In the Forum Romanum, this was marked by the shadow of a sundial reaching a specific line. Getting Roman noon right was so important that the praeco had to be very careful. Announcing noon too early or too late could mess up legal proceedings, business transactions, and meal times across the city. Islamic Golden Age, AJ, precision and prayer. The Islamic world made tremendous contributions to timekeeping during the Golden Age, 8th through 13th centuries CE. Islamic scholars preserved and expanded upon Greek and Roman knowledge while developing new innovations driven by religious requirements for precise prayer times. Prayer time, precision. Islam requires 5 daily prayers at specific times. Fajr, Dawn prayer. Der midday prayer. Ah, sir. Afternoon prayer. Maghrib, sunset prayer. Isha, night prayer. These times change daily and vary by location, creating a complex timekeeping challenge. Islamic astronomers became incredibly sophisticated at calculating prayer times for different latitudes and seasons. They were essentially solving trigonometric problems centuries before European mathematics caught up. Islamic innovations. Astrolabes. Islamic craftsmen perfected the astrolabe, a sophisticated device that could determine time, direction, and the positions of celestial objects. It was like having a smartphone app for astronomy, except made of brass and requiring actual mathematical skill to operate. The most complex astrolabes could work at multiple latitudes and show prayer times, making them essential tools for Muslim travelers. Mechanical clocks. Al-Jazari, 1136 to 1206 CE, was a brilliant engineer who designed elaborate water clocks with automated features. His castle water clock had peacocks that moved, doors that opened to reveal musicians, and a falcon that dropped balls to mark hours. It was probably the most entertaining timekeeping device ever created. Imagine if your alarm clock included a full puppet show. Sundial innovations. Islamic astronomers created sundials that could work at any latitude and designed portable sundials for travelers. They developed formulas for calculating shadow lengths that are still used today. The House of Wisdom. Baghdad's House of Wisdom, 8th through 13th centuries, was essentially the ancient world's MIT, where scholars translated Greek texts, made original discoveries, and advanced mathematical timekeeping. They created detailed astronomical tables that could predict celestial events with remarkable accuracy. Islamic scholars also preserved many Greek and Roman texts that were lost in Europe during the Dark Ages, then reintroduced them during the Renaissance. Without Islamic preservation and advancement of timekeeping knowledge, European mechanical clocks might have been delayed by centuries. Native American time concepts. Circular versus linear thinking. Native American cultures approached time very differently from Old World civilizations. Rather than viewing time as a linear progression from past to future, many native cultures conceived of time as circular or cyclical. Circular time and natural cycles. Many Native American cultures organized time around natural cycles, seasonal changes, animal migrations, plant growth cycles, and astronomical events. The Lakota concept of time, for example, was based on the idea that time moves in circles. Everything that has happened will happen again, and everything that will happen has happened before. This circular time concept had practical applications. Medicine wheels. Stone circles found across North America that align with solstices, equinoxes, and star positions. These weren't just calendars. They were spiritual and educational tools that taught about the relationship between time, space, and natural cycles. Seasonal round. Many tribes followed predictable seasonal patterns of movement and activity. The Ojibwe, for example, moved to different locations throughout the year. Sugar bush camps in spring, summer villages for farming, wild rice harvesting areas in fall, and winter camps for hunting. Indigenous calendar systems. 13 moons calendar. Many tribes used lunar calendars with 13 months, each associated with natural phenomena. The Ojibwe 13 moons included names like Jizigwan or February, Eagle Moon, Onabani Jizes or March, Crusted Snow Moon, Ishkigamizij Gizes or April, Maple Syrup Moon. These names weren't just poetic. They were practical reminders of seasonal activities and natural signs to watch for. Winter count. Plains tribes like the Lakota kept historical records called winter counts, pictographic calendars where each year was represented by a single image depicting the most memorable event of that year. Imagine if your yearly calendar was just one emoji, representing the most important thing that happened. 2020 might be represented by a mask, 2016 by a shocking election result, or 2012 by, well, maybe a Mayan calendar. Hopi time concepts. The Hopi people of the American Southwest had one of the most sophisticated time concepts in Native America. They maintained detailed ceremonial calendars based on solar observations, with ceremonies timed to coincide precisely with solstices and equinoxes. Hopi farmers used shadow sticks and horizon calendars to determine planting times. They identified specific points on the horizon where the sun would rise on important agricultural dates. This allowed them to farm successfully in one of North America's most challenging environments. The Hopi language also reflects different time concepts. It has no words for past or future, in the same way European languages do, instead focusing on whether events are manifested, observable, or unmanifest, not yet observable or no longer observable. Comparative analysis, what we learn from ancient timekeeping. Looking across all these civilizations, several fascinating patterns emerge. Universal needs, diverse solutions. Every culture needed to solve the same basic problems. 1. Agricultural timing, AT, when to plant and harvest. 2. Religious coordination, 2I, when to hold ceremonies. 3. Social organization, 2A, when to gather for trade, governance, or defense. 4. Seasonal preparation, HM, when to prepare for winter, floods, or dry seasons. But the solutions were remarkably diverse, reflecting different environments, technologies, and philosophical approaches. Accuracy versus complexity trade-offs. More accurate timekeeping systems were often more complex. The Maya achieved incredible precision but required extensive mathematical knowledge to use their calendars. The Egyptians had simpler systems that were less accurate but more accessible to ordinary people. This creates an interesting historical paradox. Sometimes primitive systems were actually more sophisticated than advanced ones. Roman seasonal hours were mathematically simpler than fixed hours, but they required more complex sundial design and social coordination. Technology and timekeeping. The available technology shaped timekeeping possibilities. Stone Age cultures relied on natural observations and memory. Bronze Age cultures could create more sophisticated sundials and water clocks. Iron Age cultures developed mechanical devices and complex astronomical instruments. But technology wasn't everything. The Maya achieved incredible accuracy using basically Stone Age technology through superior mathematics and systematic observation. Religious and political influences. Timekeeping was never just practical. It was always tied to power structures. Priestly control. In many cultures, priests controlled calendars and could declare festival dates, leap months, or prophetic times. Royal legitimacy. Chinese emperors, Roman Caesars, and Maya kings all used calendar accuracy to demonstrate their divine approval or political competence. Social coordination. Shared time systems created social cohesion, but also made centralized control possible. Different concepts of time itself. Perhaps most fascinating are the different ways cultures conceptualize time. Linear time. Hebrew, Christian, Islamic. Time moves from creation toward an ultimate destination. Cyclical time. Hindu, Buddhist, Maya, many Native American. Time repeats in grand cycles. Spiral time. Some African cultures. Time moves forward but also repeats patterns. Eternal present. Some Aboriginal Australian cultures. All time exists simultaneously. These weren't just philosophical differences. They shaped how people lived, planned, and understood their place in the universe. The legacy of ancient timekeeping. The systems developed by ancient cultures continue to influence our modern world in surprising ways. Direct inheritances. We still use many ancient time concepts directly. Sumerian base 60 seconds, 60 minutes, 360 degrees. Egyptian solar year, 365 days, with periodic adjustments. Babylonian 7-day week, Sunday through Saturday. Roman month names, January, Janus, March, Mars, etc. Julian calendar structure, the basic framework of our Gregorian calendar. Hidden influences. Some ancient influences are less obvious. Monday blues. The Romans associated Monday with the moon, considered an unlucky influence. Friday the 13th combines the unlucky number 13 related to lunar months, exceeding solar months, with Friday associated with Venus/Freya, goddesses linked to chaos and change. Christmas timing. December 25th was chosen to coincide with Roman Sol Invictus celebrations and winter solstice traditions. New Year's timing. January 1st became New Year's Day because Romans dedicated January to Janus, god of beginnings and transitions. Modern parallels. Many ancient timekeeping challenges persist today. Leap year confusion. We still struggle with the same solar year length issues that plagued Romans. Time zone coordination. Similar to ancient problems of coordinating time across vast territories. Calendar reform debates. People still propose calendar reforms, like 13 equal months, for the same reasons ancient cultures modified their systems. Religious versus civil calendars. Many cultures still maintain separate religious and civil calendar systems. Lessons from ancient time. What can we learn from ancient approaches to timekeeping that might benefit our modern world? The value of multiple time systems. Ancient cultures often used multiple overlapping time systems simultaneously, and this might actually be more psychologically healthy than our single, relentless clock time. Consider the benefits of thinking about time in multiple ways. Natural time. Dawn, midday, sunset rhythms that change with seasons. Work time, task-oriented time that focuses on completion rather than duration. Social time, flexible time for relationships and community. Sacred time, special periods set apart from ordinary routine. Many modern problems with stress, work-life balance, and seasonal depression might be helped by incorporating some of these ancient time concepts. Seasonal thinking. Ancient peoples accepted that different times of year called for different rhythms of life. Modern life tries to maintain the same pace year-round, but maybe there's wisdom in the ancient approach of seasonal variation. Some modern applications. Variable work schedules, longer hours in some seasons, shorter in others. Educational calendars, learning intensives followed by rest periods. Urban planning, designing cities that work differently in different seasons. Personal rhythms, accepting that you might be more productive at some times than others. Community time versus individual time. Ancient timekeeping was inherently communal. Everyone followed the same seasonal round, religious calendar, or civic announcements. Our modern emphasis on individual schedules might be causing some social problems. Benefits of coordinated community time. Shared experience. Everyone celebrates harvest time or mourns during difficult seasons. Social cohesion. Common rhythms create stronger communities. Collective rest. When everyone stops work at sunset or during winter, no one feels guilty about not working. Intergenerational connection. Grandparents, parents, and children all follow the same time patterns. Long-term thinking. The Maya planned in terms of 144,000 day cycles. Chinese emperors were responsible for maintaining cosmic harmony across generations. Many ancient cultures made decisions based on their effects, 7 generations in the future. Our modern quarterly business reports and election cycles might seem absurdly short-sighted to ancient peoples who routinely thought in terms of centuries or millennia. The wisdom of good enough accuracy. Not every timekeeping need requires atomic clock precision. Ancient peoples were remarkably good at matching their accuracy to their actual needs. Planting crops, accurate to within a few days. Religious ceremonies, accurate to within hours. Daily coordination, accurate to within morning, midday, or evening. Historical records, accurate to within seasons or years. Our modern obsession with precise timing for everything might be unnecessary stress. Sometimes around lunchtime really is accurate enough. Conclusion. Time travels in circles. As we conclude our journey through ancient timekeeping, it's worth reflecting on what we've learned. Every culture we've examined solved the fundamental challenge of organizing human activity and time, but they did so in ways that reflected their unique environments, technologies, and values. The Egyptians saw time as the divine order of Ma'at made manifest in the regular flooding of the Nile. The Maya saw time as nested mathematical cycles of incredible complexity and beauty. The Chinese saw time as the harmony between earthly and celestial realms. Native Americans saw time as the eternal circle of natural cycles. Each approach captured something true and valuable about the nature of temporal existence. Perhaps most remarkably, many ancient solutions to timekeeping problems were more sophisticated than we initially assumed. The Maya calendar was more accurate than our modern Gregorian calendar. Chinese water clocks included mechanical innovations that wouldn't reappear in Europe for centuries. Islamic astronomers solved trigonometric problems that we now teach in advanced mathematics courses. But accuracy wasn't everything. The most important function of ancient timekeeping systems was not precision, but meaning. These systems helped people understand their place in the cosmos, their relationship to natural cycles, and their connection to past and future generations. Our modern mechanical, digital, and atomic time systems are marvels of precision, but they've lost some of the richness that ancient peoples built into their temporal worldviews. Modern time is uniform. Every hour is exactly the same length. Linear. Time moves relentlessly from past to future. Secular. Divorced from religious or spiritual meaning. Individual. Everyone can have their own schedule. Global. The same system works everywhere on Earth. Ancient time was variable. Hours changed length with the seasons. Cyclical. Time moved in repeating patterns. Sacred. Deeply connected to religious and spiritual beliefs. Communal. Everyone followed the same rhythms. Local. Each culture developed systems suited to their environment. Neither approach is inherently superior. Modern timekeeping enables global coordination, scientific precision, and technological advancement that would be impossible with ancient systems. But ancient timekeeping provided meaning, community connection, and harmony with natural rhythms that our modern systems often lack. The future of time. As we look to the future, perhaps we can learn from both ancient wisdom and modern precision. Some possibilities: hybrid systems, combining precise global coordination with local seasonal awareness. Imagine if your smartphone could show both global time for international coordination and local natural time based on sunrise, sunset, and seasonal cycles in your specific location. Flexible work rhythms. Ancient seasonal work patterns might be more sustainable than our year-round constant pace. Some modern companies are experimenting with seasonal schedules, summer hours, or winter breaks that echo ancient seasonal rounds. Community time. Ancient peoples knew the value of shared temporal experiences. Modern communities might benefit from coordinated festivals, seasonal celebrations, or collective rest periods that bring people together in time as well as space. Long-term thinking. Ancient cultures that planned 7 generations ahead might have lessons for our climate change and sustainability challenges. What if we made decisions based on their effects 200 years in the future, as some ancient cultures routinely did? Multiple time consciousness. Instead of living entirely by clock time, we might develop awareness of multiple temporal rhythms simultaneously. Biological time, seasonal time, project time, social time, and cosmic time. Final reflections. What time is it, really? Let me leave you with a final thought experiment. Right now, as you sit in this classroom, what time is it? By our modern reckoning, it's whatever your phone says. Let's say 11:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in October. But if you were an ancient Egyptian, it might be the 15th day of Akhet, the season of inundation in the 23rd year of Pharaoh's reign, during the 4th hour of the day, as measured by the shadow of the temple obelisk. If you were Maya, today might be 4 Ahau 8 Kumku in the sacred round, combined with a specific position in the 260-day ritual calendar, and a precise count of days since the creation of the current world. If you were Chinese, this moment might be the hour of the horse on a fire day in the metal month during the season of white dew in the 37th year of the current 60-year cycle. If you were a member of the Ojibwe nation, this might be Binakwe Jaisis, the falling leaves moon, time to harvest wild rice and prepare for winter, in the endless cycle of seasons that has repeated since time began. Each of these times is simultaneously true. Each captures something different about this moment, its relationship to celestial cycles, seasonal changes, historical events, ritual significance, and natural rhythms. The question, what time is it, turns out to be much more complex and interesting than it initially appears. The answer depends not just on measurement, but on what aspect of time's passage seems most meaningful and important. Ancient peoples understood this complexity intuitively. They knew that time wasn't just measurement, it was meaning. It wasn't just coordination, it was connection. It wasn't just scheduling, it was story. As we rush through our precisely measured modern days, checking our synchronized clocks and coordinating our global schedules, we might occasionally pause to ask ourselves, what time is it really? Not just by the clock, but by the season, by the community, by the cosmos, by the heart. The ancient timekeepers, with their variable hours and cyclical years, their sacred calendars and seasonal rounds, might remind us that time isn't just something we measure. It's something we live within, something that shapes us even as we try to shape it. And perhaps that's the most important lesson from our journey through ancient timekeeping. Time isn't just about duration, it's about meaning. It's not just about when things happen, it's about why they matter. The ancients knew that time is not just a container in which life happens, but the very fabric from which life is woven. Every system they created, from Egyptian shadow clocks to Mayan long counts, was an attempt to understand not just how long things take, but what it means to exist in time at all. As we continue to refine our temporal measurements with ever greater precision, atomic clocks accurate to billionths of a second, GPS systems synchronized across continents, computers processing millions of operations per millisecond, we might remember that the most ancient and perhaps most important question about time isn't how accurate can we measure it, but rather, how meaningfully can we live within it? So, the next time you check your phone for the time, remember the Egyptian priest watching the shadow of an obelisk, the Maya astronomer calculating the Venus cycle, the Chinese engineer adjusting a water clock, the Roman official announcing noon in the Forum, and the Ojibwe elder teaching children to read the signs of the maple syrup moon. They were all, in their own ways, asking the same question we ask: what time is it? But their answers remind us that time is not just measurement, it's meaning, not just coordination, it's connection, not just scheduling, it's the sacred rhythm of being alive in this moment, in this place, in this turning world. And with that, our time together today has reached its end, measured precisely by our modern clocks, but enriched, I hope, by ancient wisdom about what it means to live in time rather than simply count it. And in case you've enjoyed our evening talk so much and still might be awake, here is another educational video for you. Tonight, we're going to learn about the glowing mushrooms of Brazil. And yes, please leave all your sophomoric comments below. Before we begin today's lecture, I have a question for you. How many of you have ever been to a rave? Don't worry, this isn't a trick question, and I promise there won't be a pop quiz on your weekend activities. The reason I ask is because today we're going to explore one of nature's most spectacular light shows, the bioluminescent mushrooms of Brazil. These fungal partygoers have been throwing their own glow parties in the rainforests for millions of years, long before humans figured out how to make a decent LED. Today's topic is particularly fitting because Brazil, that magnificent country known for its biodiversity, carnival, and football prowess, is also home to some of the most spectacular light-producing organisms on Earth. We're going to dive deep into the fascinating world of fungal bioluminescence, with a special focus on Brazilian species that literally light up the forest floor like nature's own Christmas decorations. What is bioluminescence? Bioluminescence, from the Latin bios meaning life and lumen meaning light, is the production and emission of light by living organisms through chemical reactions. It's essentially biological LED technology that puts our human engineering efforts to shame. While we've been struggling to make efficient light bulbs for just over a century, nature has been perfecting this art form for hundreds of millions of years. The bluish-green glow is attributed to luciferin, which emits light after oxidation catalyzed by the enzyme luciferase. Think of it as nature's very own glow stick chemistry. except instead of cracking a plastic tube at a concert, these organisms have evolved sophisticated biochemical pathways that would make any chemist weep with envy. The phenomenon of glowing fungi has been observed for centuries. Bioluminescent fungi have been well known for centuries, from the bright orange and poisonous jack-o'-lantern mushrooms to the phenomenon known as foxfire, where the nutrient-sipping threads of the honey mushroom give off a faint but eerie glow in rotten logs. Ancient observers often attributed these glowing forests to supernatural causes. And honestly, can you blame them? Imagine being a medieval peasant stumbling through a dark forest, only to encounter logs and mushrooms glowing with an ethereal green light. You'd probably assume you'd wandered into fairy territory, or that the forest spirits were having their annual general meeting. The term foxfire itself comes from the French faux feu, meaning false fire, because these glowing fungi could easily be mistaken for embers in the darkness. Early sailors and travelers used this natural illumination for navigation, making these fungi some of history's first biological GPS systems, though considerably less reliable than your smartphone's mapping app. Now, the star of the show. When we talk about Brazilian bioluminescent fungi, we must begin with the superstar of the fungal world, Neonothopanus gardneri. This species has earned the delightful local name flor de coco, which translates to coconut flower. To test this theory, scientists tried to show that the mushrooms were getting brighter at nighttime on purpose. To do this, they chose the Brazilian flor de coco, Neonothopanus gardneri, because it gave off the brightest light out of the 74 known glowing species. Now, calling it the brightest might be somewhat relative. We're not talking about something that could replace your desk lamp or help you read a book. But in the fungal world, this is basically the equivalent of a biological lighthouse. If mushrooms had a competition for most likely to be seen from space, N. gardneri would at least make the semifinals. The bioluminescent agaric, Agaricus gardneri Burke, was rediscovered recently in central Brazil. The new combination, Neonothopanus gardneri, is proposed for this long-forgotten taxon, supported by morphological and molecular data. This fungus has had quite the taxonomic journey. Think of it as the biological equivalent of a witness protection program. Originally described as Agaricus gardneri by Berkeley in 1840, it then disappeared from scientific literature like a mushroom-shaped Amelia Earhart. For over 170 years, it was essentially a mycological mystery, with scientists wondering if it had ever really existed or if Berkeley had perhaps been sampling some of his specimens a little too enthusiastically. The rediscovery of this species in central Brazil was like finding a biological treasure chest. Modern molecular techniques confirmed that this wasn't just Berkeley's imagination running wild. This was indeed a legitimate species, but one that needed a new scientific home. Hence the creation of the genus Neonothopanus, which roughly translates to new plus Othopanus, referring to its relationship to other fungi in its family. Geographic distribution and habitat. Neonothopanus gardneri is endemic to the coconut palm forests of northern and central Brazil. These fungi have apparently developed quite particular real estate preferences. They're not content with just any old tree, but specifically choose coconut palms and related species. It's as if they've cornered the market on tropical luxury accommodations in the fungal world. The mushrooms typically grow on fallen palm fronds and decaying coconut palm wood, creating what can only be described as bioluminescent gardens in the forest understory. Imagine walking through a Brazilian forest at night and encountering what looks like scattered green fairy lights decorating the forest floor. It's enough to make even the most skeptical scientist believe in magic. Next, biochemical mechanisms. The light production in bioluminescent fungi involves a complex biochemical pathway that scientists are still working to fully understand. The basic reaction involves several key components: luciferin, the substrate, luciferase, the enzyme, and various cofactors that make the whole system work. Recent advances toward the elucidation of fungal bioluminescence have contributed to the discovery of 4 genes, HISPs, H3H, LUS, and CPH, involved with the bioluminescence process. the so-called caffeic acid cycle, CAC. The caffeic acid cycle is particularly interesting because it suggests that fungal bioluminescence operates on a completely different biochemical pathway than what we see in fireflies, marine organisms, or bacteria. It's like discovering that different species independently invented the wheel, but used completely different materials and designs. The 4 genes identified, HISPs, H3H, LUS, and CPH, work together in what can only be described as biological teamwork at its finest. Think of them as a molecular boy band, except instead of producing catchy tunes, they're producing photons. The HISPs gene codes for an enzyme that modifies caffeic acid, H3H, contributes to the hydroxylation process. Luz, which appropriately means light in Portuguese and Spanish, codes for the luciferase enzyme, and CPH helps with the overall regulation of the process. Circadian control, nature's dimmer switch. One of the most fascinating discoveries about N. gardneri is that its bioluminescence is under circadian control. The researchers studied Neonothopanus gardneri, a Brazilian species, and found that the species regulates its bioluminescence through circadian rhythms. The mushroom's levels of luciferin, reductase, and luciferase, the chemical compound and enzymes that combine to produce light, peak at nighttime hours. This is essentially nature's own programmable lighting system. The mushrooms have evolved an internal biological clock that tells them when to turn on their lights. Specifically, they glow brightest during the night hours when their target audience, insects, are most likely to be active. Oliveira et al. Report that bioluminescence in Neonothopanus gardneri is regulated by the circadian clock. Nighttime light attracts insects that can disperse spores, a benefit to fungi living under the forest canopy, where winds are reduced. It's like having a smart home system that automatically turns on the porch light when you're expecting visitors, except in this case, the visitors are insects and the porch is a mushroom cap. The evolutionary sophistication here is remarkable. These fungi have essentially evolved their own marketing strategy, complete with optimal timing for maximum customer engagement. Moving on to the insect attraction hypothesis. The prevailing theory for why these mushrooms glow is the insect attraction hypothesis. The idea is straightforward. In the dense understory of tropical forests, wind dispersal of spores is limited, so fungi need alternative methods to spread their reproductive material. Enter the insects. By producing light at night when insects are most active, these fungi essentially create biological beacons that attract potential spore dispersers. It's remarkably similar to how flowers use bright colors and sweet fragrances to attract pollinators, except these fungi are working the night shift. Furthermore, insects are attracted by the light, raising the possibility that bioluminescence functions in spore dispersal. Studies have shown that various flying insects, including flies, beetles, and ants, are indeed attracted to the glowing mushrooms. These insects land on the mushroom caps, pick up spores on their bodies, and then carry them to new locations, essentially becoming unwitting fungal taxi services. Energy economics. The cost of being fabulous. From an evolutionary perspective, producing light isn't free. It requires energy and resources that could otherwise be used for growth, reproduction, or other survival functions. This raises the question, is the glow worth the cost? The fact that bioluminescence has evolved independently multiple times in fungi suggests that yes, the benefits outweigh the costs. However, the circadian regulation we see in N. gardneri indicates that these fungi have evolved sophisticated energy management systems. They don't waste energy glowing during the day when insects aren't around. They save their energy for prime time. This is like having a business that only turns on its neon sign during peak shopping hours. It's an elegant solution to the energy economics problem and demonstrates the remarkable optimization that can result from millions of years of natural selection. Forest ecosystem dynamics. Bioluminescent fungi play important roles in their forest ecosystems beyond just the spectacle they provide. As decomposers, They're essential for breaking down dead organic matter and recycling nutrients back into the ecosystem. Their bioluminescence adds another layer to the complex web of interactions that characterize tropical forest ecosystems. In the case of N. gardneri, their specific association with coconut palms means they're specialized decomposers of palm material. They're essentially nature's cleanup crew with a light show, breaking down fallen fronds and dead wood, while simultaneously creating one of the most beautiful natural phenomena on Earth. Now, let's talk about species diversity. Brazil is remarkably rich in bioluminescent fungi species. Ever since 13 Brazilian species, 14% of total, were identified by the group. This means that Brazil is home to nearly 1/7 of all known bioluminescent fungal species, despite representing a much smaller fraction of the world's total land area. This biodiversity hotspot status isn't accidental. Brazil's diverse ecosystems, from Amazon rainforest to Atlantic coastal forests, from Cerrado savannas to Pantanal wetlands, provide numerous ecological niches where bioluminescent fungi can evolve and thrive. It's like having multiple different theaters where evolution can put on different light shows. Geraneema viridescens, the forest specialist. Another notable Brazilian species is Geraneema viridescens. Geraneema viridescens is the only identified bioluminescent species within its genus. It has only been found in a dense rainforest located at a state park south of São Paulo, Brazil. This species represents what we might call fungal endemism at its finest. It's so specialized that it exists in only one known location, a state park south of São Paulo. However, scientists expect that the species exists in another 200 to 500 sites and has a population ranging from much larger numbers across similar habitats. G. viridescens was actually the initial model organism used in Brazilian bioluminescence research. The fungus Geraneema viridescens was used initially as model organism in the mechanistic studies on light emission and on the toxicological assay. Nowadays, this fungus was replaced Neonothopanus gardneri, whose characteristics of growth and bioluminescence are more suitable for laboratory studies. This transition from G. viridescens to N. gardneri as the primary research model represents a common trajectory in scientific research, starting with whatever species you can find and work with, then moving to species that are more amenable to laboratory conditions and experimental manipulation. The Atlantic forest connection. Many of Brazil's bioluminescent fungi are found in the Atlantic forest, Mata Atlântica, one of the world's most threatened biodiversity hotspots. This forest, which once covered much of Brazil's Atlantic coast, has been reduced to less than 12% of its original extent due to deforestation and development. The presence of endemic bioluminescent fungi in these forest fragments highlights the importance of conservation efforts. These fungi aren't just pretty light shows, they're indicators of ecosystem health and repositories of unique evolutionary innovations that took millions of years to develop. When we lose forest habitat, we don't just lose trees. We lose entire communities of organisms, including fungi with biochemical capabilities that could potentially contribute to biotechnology, medicine, or our understanding of biological processes. It's like burning down libraries filled with books written in languages we're just beginning to learn to read. Next up, laboratory cultivation. One of the major challenges in studying bioluminescent fungi has been growing them in laboratory conditions. The investigations on fungal bioluminescence initiated in 2001 in Brazil at the Laboratory of Fungal Bioluminescence of Instituto de Química, the Universidade de São Paulo. Growing glowing mushrooms in the lab is considerably more challenging than you might expect. These fungi have evolved in complex forest ecosystems with specific temperature, humidity, nutrient, and light conditions that are difficult to replicate in laboratory settings. It's like trying to recreate a jazz club atmosphere in your living room. You might get close, but something's always going to be a bit off. Researchers have had to experiment with various culture media, pH levels, temperature ranges, and even specific wood substrates to maintain both fungal growth and bioluminescence in laboratory conditions. Some fungi will grow happily in culture but refuse to glow, while others will glow dimly but won't produce the spectacular light shows seen in nature. Molecular techniques and genetic analysis. Modern molecular techniques have revolutionized our understanding of fungal bioluminescence. Optimized methodology for obtention of high-yield and quality RNA from the mycelium of the bioluminescent fungus Neonothopanus gardneri has allowed researchers to study gene expression patterns and understand how these organisms control their light production. RNA extraction from fungal mycelium presents its own challenges. Fungi have tough cell walls that must be broken down to access the genetic material inside, and their RNA is often quickly degraded by enzymes unless handled with precise techniques. It's somewhat like trying to extract information from a heavily encrypted computer while the hard drive is self-destructing. The successful extraction and analysis of high-quality RNA has allowed researchers to identify the genes responsible for bioluminescence and begin to understand how the process is regulated at the molecular level. This work has implications beyond just satisfying scientific curiosity. It's laying the groundwork for potential biotechnological applications. Field studies and ecological research. Studying bioluminescent fungi in their natural habitats presents a different set of challenges. These organisms are often most active at night, in remote forest locations, under conditions that make scientific observation and measurement difficult. Researchers essentially become scientific night shift workers, trekking through forests with specialized equipment to measure light production, document insect interactions, and collect specimens. Modern technology has made this work somewhat easier. Digital cameras capable of detecting low levels of light, portable spectrophotometers for measuring light wavelengths, and GPS units for precise location mapping have all contributed to more sophisticated field studies. However, there's still no substitute for patient observation and the willingness to spend long nights in mosquito-infested forests waiting for fungi to put on their light shows. Now let's talk about genetic engineering applications. The discovery of the genes responsible for fungal bioluminescence has opened up exciting possibilities for genetic engineering applications. Recent advances toward the elucidation of fungal bioluminescence have contributed to the discovery of 4 genes: HISPs, H3, H, Luz, and CPH, involved with the bioluminescence process, the so-called caffeic acid cycle, CAC, and to develop biotechnological applications such as autoluminescent tobacco. The development of autoluminescent tobacco represents just the beginning of potential applications. Imagine crops that could signal their own health status through changes in bioluminescence, or ornamental plants that provide natural lighting for gardens and walkways. We could potentially create living streetlights or self-illuminating safety markers for hiking trails. The applications extend beyond plants. Researchers are exploring the possibility of creating bioluminescent bacteria for environmental monitoring, where the presence and intensity of light could indicate pollution levels or other environmental conditions. It's like having an army of microscopic environmental sensors that glow to communicate their findings. Biomedical applications. Bioluminescence has already found applications in biomedical research as a reporter system, a way to track the activity of genes or the location of cells in living organisms. The fungal bioluminescence system could potentially offer advantages over existing systems, particularly in terms of energy efficiency and the specific wavelengths of light produced. Researchers are also investigating the potential antimicrobial properties of bioluminescent fungi. Some preliminary studies suggest that certain compounds involved in the bioluminescence pathway might have bioactive properties that could be developed into new medications. It's still early days, but the possibility of medicines derived from glowing mushrooms adds a certain poetic justice to pharmaceutical research. Environmental monitoring. The sensitivity of fungal bioluminescence to environmental conditions makes these organisms potential candidates for environmental monitoring systems. Changes in light production could potentially indicate changes in air quality, soil contamination, or other environmental stressors. This is particularly relevant in the context of climate change and deforestation in tropical regions. Bioluminescent fungi could serve as early warning systems for ecosystem degradation, providing a visible signal when environmental conditions begin to deteriorate. Next, habitat preservation. The discovery of new bioluminescent species and the detailed study of their ecology underscores the importance of habitat preservation. Many of these fungi have very specific habitat requirements and limited distributions, making them particularly vulnerable to environmental changes. The case of Geraneema viridilucens, found in only one known location, illustrates this vulnerability. If that single forest fragment were destroyed, we could potentially lose the species entirely, along with whatever unique biochemical innovations it represents. Conservation efforts in Brazil face enormous challenges, from economic pressures for land development to political changes that affect environmental protection policies. The bioluminescent fungi serve as flagship species, charismatic organisms that can help capture public attention and support for broader conservation efforts. Climate change impacts. Climate change poses particular challenges for tropical forest fungi. Changes in temperature, precipitation patterns, and humidity levels could all affect the delicate ecological balance that supports bioluminescent fungi communities. Many fungi are sensitive to temperature changes, and the biochemical processes that produce bioluminescence could be particularly vulnerable to disruption. Rising temperatures might affect enzyme stability, while changing precipitation patterns could alter the moisture levels that fungi need for growth and reproduction. Ex situ conservation. Given the threats facing natural populations, researchers are working to establish ex situ conservation programs, essentially fungal seed banks that maintain living cultures of bioluminescent species in laboratory conditions. This work is complicated by the challenges of maintaining both fungal viability and bioluminescence in culture. However, successful ex situ conservation programs could serve as insurance policies against species loss, while also providing material for ongoing research. Moving on to worldwide distribution of bioluminescent fungi. While Brazil is remarkably rich in bioluminescent fungi, these organisms are found worldwide. Armillaria melea is the most widely distributed of the luminescent fungi, found across Asia, Europe, and North America. The global distribution of bioluminescent fungi provides opportunities for comparative studies that can help us understand the evolutionary forces that shape this phenomenon. Different species have evolved bioluminescence in different environments, potentially for different ecological functions. Some species produce light primarily in their mushroom caps, others in their stems, and still others primarily in their underground mycelial networks. These differences suggest that bioluminescence has evolved to serve different functions in different ecological contexts. Evolutionary convergence. The independent evolution of bioluminescence in different fungal lineages represents an example of evolutionary convergence, the same solution arising independently in response to similar environmental challenges. The recently discovered Lucentipes lineage contains two species, Mycena lucentipes and Geraneema viridilucens, which belong to a family that has not yet been formally named. The discovery of new lineages of bioluminescent fungi suggests that this phenomenon may be more widespread than previously thought. Each independent evolution of bioluminescence represents a separate experiment in biochemical innovation. By studying these different systems, researchers can gain insights into the range of possible solutions to the challenge of biological light production. Cultural and historical significance. Bioluminescent fungi have captured human imagination across cultures and throughout history. Indigenous peoples in various parts of the world have incorporated glowing fungi into their folklore, spiritual practices, and practical applications. In Brazil, local names like Flor de Coco reflect the cultural significance of these organisms. Traditional ecological knowledge held by indigenous and local communities often provides valuable insights that complement scientific research. The historical significance extends to early scientific exploration as well. Many of the first scientific descriptions of bioluminescent fungi came from naturalists and explorers who encountered these organisms during expeditions to tropical regions. So, the future of bioluminescent fungi research lies increasingly in genomic and transcriptomic approaches. Complete genome sequencing of multiple species will allow researchers to understand the full genetic basis of bioluminescence and how it has evolved across different fungal lineages. Transcriptomic studies, examining which genes are active under different conditions, will help researchers understand how environmental factors influence bioluminescence. This could lead to insights into how these organisms might respond to climate change or other environmental stressors. As our understanding of fungal bioluminescence improves, synthetic biology applications become increasingly feasible. Researchers are working to engineer simplified bioluminescence systems that could be more easily introduced into other organisms or used in biotechnological applications. The goal is to create modular systems that could be customized for specific applications: bright lights for some uses, dim lights for others, different colors for different purposes, or lights that respond to specific environmental conditions. Future research will likely focus more on understanding bioluminescent fungi as components of complex ecological networks. This includes studying their relationships with other organisms, their roles in nutrient cycling, and their responses to environmental changes. Advanced techniques like environmental DNA sampling could help researchers identify bioluminescent fungi in ecosystems where they might be present but not easily observed. This could lead to the discovery of new species and a better understanding of the true diversity of these organisms. The biotechnological applications of fungal bioluminescence are still in their infancy. Future developments might include living architectural elements that provide natural lighting, agricultural systems that use bioluminescent signals for crop monitoring, environmental sensors based on bioluminescent organisms, novel medical imaging techniques using fungal bioluminescent systems, artistic applications that blur the line between biology and art. Now, some technical limitations. Despite significant advances in recent years, research on bioluminescent fungi still faces substantial technical challenges. The light produced by most species is relatively dim compared to other bioluminescent organisms, making it difficult to study under some experimental conditions. Laboratory cultivation remains problematic for many species. While researchers have had success with N. gardneri and a few other species, many bioluminescent fungi either won't grow in culture or lose their ability to produce light under laboratory conditions. Conservation challenges. The conservation of bioluminescent fungi faces all the general challenges of fungal conservation, plus some unique difficulties. Many species have narrow habitat requirements and limited distributions, making them vulnerable to habitat loss. Fungi are often overlooked in conservation planning compared to more charismatic organisms like birds or mammals. This means that habitat protection efforts might not adequately consider the specific needs of fungal communities. Economic and political factors. Research and conservation efforts are ultimately limited by economic and political factors. Funding for basic research on fungal biology can be limited, particularly for organisms that don't have obvious immediate economic value. In Brazil and other tropical countries, conservation efforts often compete with economic development pressures. The short-term economic benefits of land development can outweigh the long-term benefits of preserving biodiversity. Knowledge gaps. Despite decades of research, substantial knowledge gaps remain in our understanding of fungal bioluminescence. We still don't fully understand the biochemical pathways involved, the ecological functions served, or the evolutionary history of this phenomenon. The discovery of new species and new bioluminescence mechanisms continues to surprise researchers, suggesting that our understanding of this phenomenon is still incomplete. As we reach the end of our journey through the glowing forests of Brazil, it's worth reflecting on what we've learned and what questions remain to be answered. The bioluminescent fungi of Brazil represent a remarkable example of evolutionary innovation and ecological specialization. From the bright lights of Neonothepanus gardneri in coconut forests to the endemic Geronema viridilescens in Atlantic forest fragments, these organisms have evolved sophisticated biochemical systems that allow them to literally light up their world. The research on these fungi has revealed complex interactions between biochemistry, ecology, and evolution. The discovery that bioluminescence is under circadian control in N. Gardneri demonstrates the sophisticated regulatory systems that these organisms have evolved. The identification of the genetic basis for fungal bioluminescence opens up exciting possibilities for biotechnological applications. Perhaps most importantly, the study of these organisms highlights the incredible biodiversity found in tropical ecosystems and the urgent need for conservation efforts to protect these biological treasures. Each species represents millions of years of evolutionary innovation, and the loss of habitat threatens to eliminate organisms and processes that we're only just beginning to understand. The glowing mushrooms of Brazil remind us that nature is far more creative and sophisticated than we often realize. In an age of increasing urbanization and technological dependence, these organisms provide a connection to the natural world and a reminder of the wonder that can be found in even the smallest and most overlooked life forms. As we face global challenges like climate change, habitat loss, and biodiversity decline, the bioluminescent fungi of Brazil offer both inspiration and practical possibilities. They inspire us with their beauty and complexity, and they offer potential solutions to human challenges through biotechnological applications. The fungi that light up Brazil's forests have been putting on their spectacular shows for millions of years, long before humans were around to appreciate them. With continued research and conservation efforts, we can ensure that these natural light shows continue for millions of years to come, providing wonder, scientific insights, and perhaps practical benefits that we can't yet imagine. In closing, I'd like to leave you with this thought. The next time you're walking through a forest at night and you see a faint green glow emanating from a fallen log or mushroom, remember that you're witnessing one of nature's most sophisticated biotechnologies in action. You're seeing the result of millions of years of evolution, the product of complex biochemical pathways, and perhaps most importantly, you're experiencing a small piece of the magic that makes our natural world so extraordinary. The glowing mushrooms of Brazil are more than just a biological curiosity. They're a testament to the incredible creativity of evolution, and a reminder that there's still so much we don't know about the natural world. They challenge us to look more carefully, think more deeply, and appreciate the complexity and beauty that surrounds us, even in the smallest and most overlooked corners of our planet. Thank you for joining me tonight on this illuminating journey through the forests of Brazil. I hope you'll never look at mushrooms, glowing or otherwise, in quite the same way again.